All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beat the Cult podcast. My name is Nikki. I appreciate you joining me today. Here at Beat the Cult, we fight cult like religious thinking and practices. And today I am joined by one of my good friends, Damien Marie Athope. Hi, Damien.
Hey, everybody.
It is so good to have you on. I was so glad when you said you could come on. That is awesome. And
Yeah.
we were just getting into this right before we went live. Let's talk about my conversation with Chris K. Dub, the presuppositionalist that I got dragged into. And I say dragged because I had no idea he was a precept. Let's start with the rape thing because I stayed up many nights after that pondering my response.
So you had a question asked to you about is there such thing as objective morality? And then
Absolute.
and
It
then
was
that he said, do you believe that rape is wrong in all instances? So before we get into that, though, I am an axiological atheist,
oh yeah,
which is a
introduce yourself.
value theory,
So sorry.
value science type of atheism. And just to
Yes.
break it down really quick, what it does is it looks at and evaluates things to come to conclusions. In other words, it's more really than atheism, even though it's considered a form of constructive atheism. It's also apatheism. It's also agnosticism. It's also anti-theist. Always,
Awesome. Okay.
it generally can be, but it doesn't have to be anti-religionist. But it's always anti-theist.
Okay.
But
Good.
it does it almost like a secular humanist type of way. So in other words, unlike say Richard Dawkins or something, or some people feel, like type of person that really hammers religions and stuff and makes people feel bad. But my
Mhm.
goal is actually to help people think. So
Yes.
they just I was just say so to get people to understand that my way is my own way. I invented it. Like you said,
Mm.
I'm a genius. Whatever. I have
You're super
135
smart.
IQ, so I'm the lowest of the geniuses. But I also have a high creative mind.
Still a
So
genius.
yeah, so I have a high creative mind. So in general, like very very creative.
Good,
And
good.
I also have, because of extreme abuse that I experienced as a child,
Oh
I'm a mild
no.
sociopath.
Oh no.
This
Okay.
actually helps me to see things because I don't always see it through emotions. Like a lot of
Mm.
things most people do is see things through emotions. And when
Mhm.
you filter it through emotions, you're often wrong.
I
You
agree with that.
misinterpret. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not the way to do it.
Right.
So I'm just trying to get people to understand. So things I can do, and also I'm genderqueer, meaning that I feel, in a sense, kind of like male and female, and depending on like my environment, how safe I feel
Hmm.
more female. I think that's more who
Okay.
I am, and the male, or the male, part of me is more when I feel threatened.
Oh, okay. Well,
Then
that
I
makes
then all
sense,
of a
doesn't
sudden,
it?
if you ever see me when I'm really threatened, I don't seem very female at all.
Oh,
But
sure.
most of the time, that's actually I'm very like passive seeming, but I'm really not passive. I just like to just get. I just have really a mellow sort of personality, except when I get mad.
Understood.
Then then
I
I
think
then
that
I,
applies. Yeah.
I'm like I need to control myself.
Sure.
Because I'll go to prison. I mean, I'm
I think we'd all be in
extremely
prison if we
well,
didn't
but
control ourselves.
my point is, I'm trying to say is so just so that people understand. I'm not saying I'm the greatest, although I am pretty damn good at this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I also have mental illness, and that does allow me to use philosophy in a non-emotional way that may be hard. That's what I mean about debate. That may be hard for
Yes.
people. So the first
Yes.
thing I would say about any kind of debate or anything is, just like philosophy in general, know yourself. This is, I think, the biggest failure of any people that go and talk in public. You
Right.
need to be confident about who you are. Like Nikki, about what's your morality? You should be able to say it. Well, how do you feel about atheism? You should be able to say it. How do you feel
Right.
about agnosticism? How do you feel about theists? How do you feel about religion? How do you feel? You should be confident. In other words, I feel like some people go in thinking they're just going to be like a machine gun and they're going to be, attack everybody and win. But to
No.
me, I always try to remind people, what is our goal?
And I think
Is the
you make a
goal
good
winning
point.
or helping people?
You
Because
make a
those are
good
two different
point.
behaviors.
There is, and he actually said about 2.5 hours in, and I'm talking about Chris. His name's K-Dub. He's a presuppositionalist advocate. And I ended up having a conversation with him on Theological Joe's podcast, who's great. He'll actually be on next week. He's amazing. And it turned out to be more of a debate. So to your point,
right,
I was not.
But I don't really do formal debates. Like Matt Dillahunty does formal debates.
Yeah.
I could take people down better when it's just discussions, because then it's
I
hot,
thought that's
fast,
what it was.
reason. I challenge you. I help you think. Because see, to me, it's not always challenging. Sometimes I help you think. So let's go back to the rape thing.
Yeah.
So if you asked
right.
me, because I'm not going to say what you did, but if you asked me, if someone said, Damien, do you believe in objective morality? My first question is, what do you mean by objective morality?
Right.
Because that's,
Yes.
So I try to show people in general, there's a way of like thinking about questions,
Right.
and what order to do them, because that's what makes them more powerful.
Okay.
Is to do them in the right order. So the first thing you always want to think in general. So whenever you feel like I don't know what's going on, always go back to, okay, what is going on, right? Act ignorant. So like in other words, if someone says a God, I don't know what kind of God or how they think of God. I have no clue. A lot of people start assuming it's Abrahamic or something, but that's not always true. That's true. I used to do a lot of in the street debate, was what I did the most of, and got people to think and even change. And in fact, one woman, I talked to her for half an hour, and she went from being a full-blown theist to agnostic. Right there, just talking to me, because I was just saying things. And so, like I said, the first thing you got to think is because that's before everything. Before you figure out who you are, the first thing is, why are you doing this?
Okay.
You should really know what your goal is. My goal is always like all my shows and stuff, and is not to be better than anybody, but to be, in a sense, helpful as an educator or a thinker that can allow people to think better and understand things better and start to, grasp stuff for themselves. Because I don't want you to have me as a champion. What I want to do is teach you how to have your own self-mastery.
Okay. So what would you have said to his question, is rape absolutely always wrong?
So at first I would say, what is objective morality? Because that's the first thing I would want to know. You always want to ask the question. You always want to clarify, because it's a loaded term. To him, that means you have to have God.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
You see my point? So you can't just accept words like because if you mean objective morality has to have God, well, then I have no objective morality. But if you mean that I can logically come to conclusions about rights of people and harm reduction, that I can do. You're talking about social contract is what I would have said probably for you. You believe, I would say, I don't know exactly everything, but your morality seems like social contract. In other words, that everybody has this equal thing, and we all choose to behave, even though we know it's not like ultimate morality. We all want to get along, not be hurt. We all think that most of us, or we should think that, of others and stuff. So I'm just saying, not just ourselves. That's in a sense just as mine's more than that. I actually have way more than that, but that's because I'm more defined in my position. What I use, I got to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but what I use in a sense to make it the simplest is, in a sense, moral fear and moral love. Two kinds of thinking.
Okay.
So moral fear is
that
I don't want injustice to happen.
All right.
Terrifies me, the injustice. So all morality, in a sense, filters through these two things. For me, as a quick, what I try to make it simple too for people, because that's also what I try to do, is take really hard concepts and make it more simple. Because then it's usable. It's a lot easier to quickly break it down. Does this involve violation of justice or injustice? And that's generally more of in a sense, a punishment mindset or whatever that you're trying to do. The other one is moral love. This comes in a sense from empathy. This goes beyond sometimes to do justice could be almost be unempathetic in a sense. So, because what I'm saying, because what he means by, in a sense, always, because he thinks of something as always wrong. First off, he's wrong, but
Sure.
When you say something is always wrong, so if a person who is mentally, disabled, can't even think, kills someone, should we hold them accountable as someone who's totally, coherent and they're
Right.
thinking? And that obviously can't be true.
Yes, he's not being
So
very
his objective
versatile.
morality would be failing, but
Right.
moral love would go, yeah, but that requires empathy.
Sure. Okay.
One requires justice, one requires empathy.
Okay.
In your sense, you're doing this. You know what that's called? Moral reasoning. That's what everybody does. That's what I first hate about people that talk about, what their morality is. You didn't get morality from the Bible.
No, no one does.
So that's horseshit.
Right.
So the rape thing, right? So to me,
Yes.
rape is always wrong, but the reason is not, in a sense, his belief in objective morality. It's more a concept closer to what you, I think, in a sense, type of morality where it's a social contract. My
Yes.
thinking is I start my ethics where everyone owns themselves.
Right. Agreed.
Because
like
of that means that prostitution is legal. Killing yourself is legal.
Mhm.
And being able to do drugs should be legal for adults. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Doing,
Adults, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? That the fact of sexual consent. Can you have rape with your wife? I don't know. Does she own her body? Yes. Well, then
See, that's what I
yes.
was thinking was
But what I'm
consent,
trying to say is,
non-consent. Consent,
but
non-consent was where my head went.
right, but how, to me, the best way to do it is actually they own themselves. Once they own themselves, in a sense, you're going to the reason. Like if you
Right.
say this isn't good, this is why it's not good. You violated their self-ownership.
Okay. Right.
You see what I'm
And then he
saying?
would ask, why is that wrong? How do you know anything's wrong if you don't have absolute knowledge, which is
Well,
ridiculous?
but we do have knowledge if it's wrong. We know that when people get raped, they have psychological trauma for years, sometimes their entire life. In fact,
Why is that wrong to you if you don't believe in
generationally, also
God?
it can affect their children, their grandchildren. That being affected in certain ways, poverty can have
Sure.
generational effects. So
It does.
what I'm saying, my point is, so to say that it doesn't, he's wrong. But let's go
Of
back to the
course.
thing. So a lot of times, especially presuppositionalists, they try to do
Precepts.
this, flash thing of saying, well, it's my worldview,
Yeah.
as if
And you're
somehow
taking
that
from it.
means logic doesn't apply to you,
Right.
which is
That's
really funny
bullshit.
because then they'll use logic, which they say they can do in their worldview. And I'm like, explaining a fallacy in a complicated way doesn't make it not a fallacy.
Right. Agreed. But that's what
So,
he
in
wants to
other words,
claim. Yeah.
your claim that a worldview is somehow moving out of logic, or only you can use logic, it's just a fallacy.
What
It's
specific
absolutely
fallacy would that be?
well. So whenever something is inaccurate, in other words, like you say, which kind of fallacy? There's a
Mhm.
lot of kind of fallacies, but you
Right.
can have informal fallacies that are, in a sense, doesn't have to have a name. In other words, to me, you don't need to learn every single thing that's wrong. It is wrong thinking to think that just because you use the word or the thinking of worldview, now regular logic doesn't apply to you, like burden of proof doesn't apply to you.
Exactly. Right. Well, that's
The
their
reason why I
argument.
bring this up is because what the presuppositionals will say, they'll say, my worldview, that you can't have logic, you can't have thinking or reason or anything without God.
Right. That's what he
But that
says.
doesn't, that, do you understand? But that's a claim.
It is.
How are you going to back that claim up? Well, the Bible.
I asked him to do that. Yeah, I
The
asked
Bible,
him.
but it's circular reasoning because the
It
Bible.
is.
But how you know the Bible's accurate? Bible's accurate because my
Because of the
worldview. But
Bible.
how'd you get your worldview? From the Bible.
Right.
It's a complete and utter fallacy.
Yeah, it is. But
So-
his rebuttal is, how can you possibly know anything epistemologically if you can't even trust your own thinking and don't have absolute knowledge of things? If you're always open to changing your views, how can you know anything? And
Well-
I know better how to respond to that now, but at the time I did not.
Well, I just currently did it. To me, you always, so we gather beliefs without realizing it. I mean, we're like belief gathering machines. That's why I don't like when
Interesting.
atheists say they don't have beliefs. I'm like, that's
Oh, no, they
a
do.
belief. But
Right.
my point,
Exactly.
no. So what you should care about is not if I have beliefs, Belief just means that you find something to be true. You find science to be true, you believe it. If you say, I know something, before knowing it, you had to believe it to believe the confidence of saying you know it.
Right.
And so
that makes sense. Sure.
Well, because somebody, well, I know science is true. And I'm like, yeah, and you also believe it.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. Is what I'm trying to say is that they get so hung up on that, just like the presuppositionalist. It is important to figure out your presuppositionalist. That's why I told you the second thing. First thing is know why you're doing it. Second thing is you need to know you. Like I said,
Okay.
so I figure out what's my morality. How do I think? Because I need to be ready.
Right.
So,
well, now I know that.
Then to me, then it goes into you got to learn how to ask questions, and you also need to learn how to interrupt people and how to, because they're going to want to talk.
Sure. And I have no problem interrupting Chris. That was not an issue, but I was just thrown off by I should have did more to prepare, because I thought we were just going to be talking about his homophobic, transphobic ideas that he promotes on Twitter. I did not know he was going to come out with a word for word Seitan-Bruggencate script, that Seitan-Bruggencate presuppositionalist script. But now I know how to respond to that. And I'm ready to have this conversation.
Like I said, they're what they are is in a sense like fascist fideists. Fideism is in a sense faith in faith, and it's also a belief that faith is better than reason, or it can be that.
Yes,
and they obviously, a presuppositionalist is doing that because they're saying they have faith in the Bible, thus the Bible is true, thus their worldview is true, thus they don't need to have proof of the Bible because the Bible itself is proof. I'm like, what?
No. So what are your ideas on their argument that empiricism is also circular, that we cannot trust empiricism because there's nothing to compare empiricism to, that empiricism is validated by empiricism, basically?
Well, is reason, so this way, what are they trying to do? They're trying to use reason to explain why reason isn't true. So is reason itself a fallacy? Is logic itself a fallacy? No. The answer is no. Once again, they themselves are producing a fallacy. In other words, they're forming the question so that it comes out that the answer is, are they right or are you wrong? But they're already wrong.
It's very weird.
The thing about a fallacy is it is a wrong way of thinking.
Yes, it is. It's very weird. And they will continue to harp on the point that empiricism cannot validate empiricism because that's circular. But I would assume...
And so reason cannot validate reason. Logic cannot validate logic. Is that what you're saying? Then you can't use none of the arguments you're trying to do to go against, in a sense, empiricism. Empiricism also, to me, is not just evidence. It's obviously the reason. Because if you look in a room, just people think, because I feel like the philosophy is lost on those people, or intentionally probably, or they just don't know, like you said.
Although they will quote philosophers.
So if you look out at the world, how do you know what's evidence without also applying reason? Seriously, look at the world and figure out what's like a scientist. What's proof of what you're doing and what's not? Is everything equal? It can't be, right? It can't be. Something has to be evidence, and other stuff is not evidence, right?
Right.
So, but that's not, like I said, it's not just living to evidentiary in a thing. It's also you're thinking about it. You're testing. There's tests that they do that where it's found matters. If I say that I have the Nile River in my pocket, do you need to look in my pocket to know that that's an inaccuracy?
No, but there would definitely.
So it's because I violated reality. I mean, I could be near the Nile River, but then I would have to be in Egypt, or
you could have or whatever, like a small jar of the Nile River in your pocket,
right? But then I would have been, in a sense, being kind of dishonest, even this somewhat, because I was saying it as a global term and not an amount of.
Sure.
I didn't say I have some of that, which would have been more honest with it. But so, to me, it goes when you're talking to people. The first thing they'll say stuff. So they'll say they believe in a God. What do you mean by God? To me, that always should be your first question. I mean, never, especially a presuppositionalist. You need to grill every single word they use. What do you mean by worldview? How did you come to that? Did you have options of other worldviews? How did you know that that's the worldview? If that is the worldview, why don't all Christians share that worldview if it's so obvious? Why is there different Christians? I mean,
and they would just turn around and say, you don't understand anything epistemologically because your worldview is not rooted in God. It's just a stupid,
right? Which
dance.
is, like
That's
I said,
all it
a
comes
fallacy
back to.
statement. Okay, and I would just say, and again, you're talking fallacies. Again, you are being intellectually dishonest because that actually is not how thinking works.
And I've said that to him several times. And a lot of the arguments that I offered, Dillahunty did offer to Bruggen Kate, but to your point earlier, I did not have the confidence to actually back those arguments because that was the first time I had been presented with that
right.
issue.
But what I'm trying to say is, though, instead of having to rely on arguments, in other words, there's always going to be someone who knows more arguments. My way of teaching is actually to try to get you to understand how to ask good questions. And then how to use what is offered to make new questions to be even more, in a sense, detailed and more. So to put it like this. So I was walking on the street. This drunk guy comes up to me, right? And I was in Philadelphia. No, Pittsburgh. I was in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Anyways, and he could this guy's drunk and coming up to me. And I'm like, oh shit. And it's dark. And I'm kind of worried because he could tell he's just fucked up or something, And I know, and he's like, talking to me like I'm his best friend, And I'm like trying to walk like, oh God, just get away from me. Anyways,
right.
So he tells me, that his favorite thing to do is take mushrooms. He goes, that's how he knows spirituality is true.
I've heard that before.
Said, so there's a chemical in the mushrooms that turn on something in your brain. Does other forms of hallucinogens do that, or is it just mushrooms? Anyways, my point. But get my point. I took what he said. I asked him to clarify it too, but I took what he said. Then he said, "Oh well, I felt the angels, and there's so instead of like some atheists just tack him on that, I went, when you say you felt it, where in your body did you feel it, and what was the pressure?" What was the size of the hands or the wings or the what? Explain this. How was the texture feeling? Well, actually, I guess it didn't touch me. See, now I got him to think. Right?
I guess it didn't touch me. Yeah.
And I said, oh, and you said it talked to you. What was the sound of its voice? What was the language? Was it male or female in voice? Then he goes, well, I guess I didn't really hear it either.
Okay.
But my point is, but it's because I talk to them. And also, there's another point about what like I told you at the beginning. What's my point of doing this? If my point is care, shouldn't I be more like a teacher? Shouldn't I be more patient? Shouldn't I be more understanding? You understand? Instead of being angry, short-tempered, and whatever. Because I feel like sometimes, and I know it's hard. Believe me, being an atheist, and it feels like everybody's against us. It is hard not to want to attack back. Especially when they say absolute like fallacies and they just keep doing it over. It's like irritating.
It is very irritating. I'm surprised I maintained my cool as much as I did, frankly. And you make an excellent point. My brother was in town today, and he's a Christian. I talk about my brother all the time. I love him. And he was talking to me about this. He's like, I've been meaning to talk to you about your purpose for why you're doing the debates and why you're getting into it, because it seems like there's a personal vendetta that you have against Christianity based on our upbringing. And our upbringing was very psychologically and religiously abusive. Michael and I are both gay, and my father has been very abusive to him. And my mom as well, not abusive, but religiously abusive, like you're not going to get married and the demons are after you. But there is a lot of pain there. And I am trying to work on being less aggressive towards others, because I do want to teach and be informative, and I do want people to be willing to hear what I have to say and to learn from it. But there is a lot of frustration there because there's been a lot of mistreatment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I do grasp that, especially a lot of atheists, I was raised in a fucked up ass house too. I was hated for being intersex and stuff, from birth. So, I mean,
that's not okay.
And they didn't even tell me. I had to find out from a doctor.
Oh my God. What age did you
as an adult, I was like,
as an adult,
a 20-something. And I went to a doctor, and I because I had a friend because I've been real sexual and stuff and kind of aggressive, but it's also being sociopath from violent
Sure.
upbringing. But
Yeah.
my friend said that he had a bunch of problems with violence and sex and stuff, and so he said he went to the doctor and his testosterone was too high. And I thought,
Interesting.
wow, maybe that's what's wrong with me. So I
Well,
went
that
to
wasn't a problem my ex had. It's just
so I thought, oh, maybe that's what's problem. And so I
Is there
went
such
to
thing as a man's testosterone being too high? Isn't that kind of what? Well, is that not a good thing? I thought maybe it's
well,
just
I
for
know
me from dating passive men.
well, I know it can cause issues, certainly aggressiveness, but
Sure.
I mean, because I think it's like, oh, I don't want to say the thing because I can't remember right now on top of my head, but I wanted to say like 95% of violence is men.
Of
Like
course.
women do sexual violence. That's what it is. 95% of that, sexual. 95% of sexual violence is men. Women do make up 5%, and half
Mhm.
of it is someone they know.
Oh,
It's
just
sexual
half. It's
violence.
not higher. A higher percentage is someone
But
they know.
but with men, it's 50% are fathers or stepfathers
Towards
that
the
do
children.
sexual,
Oh,
stuff.
sexually assault. You know, I actually bought a book that was a research study on incest. And it is very common. The most common cases of incest are a father and daughter. So that aligns with statistics. But incest is extremely common. And I have never considered like an aunt and a niece or a bunch of siblings all having sex with each other. I did not even think of that. But this book covers those and actually performs a lot of research on it. It's very interesting. It's horrific, but it's interesting to say the
Yeah.
least. Um,
Yeah, but going back to the stuff about debating and everything, to
mhm.
me, like I said, it also a structure of thinking that I'm able to do well because I already have like a way that I know to think. Just
Sure.
like when it comes to like if like why should I believe something or not? I try and I'm not perfect, but I try to have in a sense belief etiquette, a way that I approach beliefs. And
How do you
so
approach
to me,
beliefs?
it's 3 steps. The one is I want to try to have reasoned belief acquisitions, and I guarantee everything I think is not reasoned.
Sure.
But I strive for that. So that should be the goal. Number one, always to have reasoned belief acquisitions, that you try to get beliefs that are reasonable.
Sure.
Then you should have good belief maintenance. That means
Okay.
anything you already believe, you should keep testing it, and including if it needs to, the next thing, which is honest belief relinquishment, letting it go. Some of it, half of it, amending it, fixing it, letting it go completely. If
Okay.
it's not found wanting, which I recently did. A couple years now, I've thought that millet farmers who make up most of Asia languages are related to Europe, starting Indo-European.
I remember you saying this,
Right.
that you learned
Which we
something.
had
Yeah.
evidence in a sense, but then I found new evidence because here's the thing: I keep looking.
Sure.
Unlike
Sure.
other people like that ancient aliens or ancient hypothesis or apocalypse or whatever show that just came out on Netflix with Graham Hancock.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
stuff, yeah, that stuff is whack job to me. But so what happened is they did more tests and they said that they were wrong. I don't know how they're wrong. Seems kind of odd and crazy, but I'll go with the science until I know any better. That
Right.
they said that they're thousands of years younger. Well, then that changes my thinking. Oh, okay. Well, forget it. That then I guess it wasn't involved. And also, I looked because of that. I went and looked to the language. Is there any studies on millet related to Proto-Indo-European language?
Mm.
And someone did. Before, someone said there was some, right? Which also backed up my old theory. But the new one says that person is wrong. That just means grind and something else and whatever. He said, no, those words can't mean millet in a sense. They are other
Okay.
words. So he said,
Okay.
surprisingly, there's no word for millet, which the author was also shocked that, wow, they didn't have it because everybody thought they did.
Okay.
So that, but it's science. And it goes against the other science. Well, the current science that goes back to what you said. You know, Science, and I like and prefer over, say, religion, because science will change and update to the new information. Not go,
Yes, and I don't see a problem
oh
with
no,
that.
sticking to the old, even though now it can't be correct. I don't care. I already believed it. So
Exactly. I'm not going to change my views. And that's what I repeated to him several times. I was like, there's nothing wrong with remaining unsure until you have more evidence or
oh,
even
absolutely.
changing.
That was
And he was like, well, how do you know that? And it was just in, I mean, I am actually about to start a debate or do a debate on a show or a channel called The Crucible. And somebody on Twitter reached out to, I guess, the person who runs it and said, can we get this atheist chick on The Crucible basically to debate? And that's what I've been wanting to do. So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity, but there is some nervousness there. But I think it might have to do with maybe not feeling. Well, I'm not sure what they're going to ask, but the guy told me that most of the debaters are presuppositionalists because I specifically asked not to debate a presuppositionalist, and he said, well, most of them are. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just get the pressure. But they're the toughest, I feel.
well,
So I
they're
think it would be
dishonest.
good. Yeah, they very, very
Talking to
dishonest.
dishonest thinkers. You
Yeah.
think they're hard? You should watch me try to talk to this one idiot who isn't it. Sorry. I mean, when you act like an idiot, you're an idiot. I mean,
Yeah, you're an idiot.
when I
That's
try to
funny.
explain it to you, I show you the fallacy, everything, and then you
Yeah.
just go, yeah, like somehow that's okay. It's not okay.
No, it's not. It is absolutely not.
So I have a debate with Adam Friend or something. I don't
Adam
know.
Friend.
Something
Adam
like
Friend.
that. That's. But anyways, other people, a
Sounds
couple other people
familiar.
debated him. It's from before. But anyways, because he started talking before when I was on Instagram, I think it was. He starts talking this crap about me. I'm like,
Uh-oh.
what the fuck?
Maybe I need to be on
And
Instagram
then
more.
he's like,
That's
oh,
good.
you don't believe in science. It's impossible because you're an anti-theist.
How is that related? What was his argument for that?
Well, first off, he had a fallacy of what the term anti-theist means that no one, not the dictionary or anyone else, agrees with. So he
What
had
was his
his own little
definition?
nonsense that what he calls it.
What
And
does
I
he
said, well,
call
you
it?
don't get to make up words, sorry. And if you do, you
Right.
can't demand other people to agree to them. I
How does
mean,
he define
I
anti-theist?
don't remember off the top of my head. It's a couple of years now, but talking to him was one of the. In fact, in the video, if you watch it, I at the end, I'm so done. I was like, this guy, I can't even deal with this guy. Is not, I don't know, intelligent enough to even have a conversation with me on this. He needs to shut the fuck up. I mean, I don't want to be mean. I was, trying to be empathetic, but he goes,
Sure.
you have any questions for me? And I said, no. I just want to explain why you're wrong. That's it.
It's futile. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done. I'm done.
Have you ever done like any formal debates?
I did one formal debate with the guy in Canada who actually was a street preacher that
Oh,
took his street preaching stuff and got into the one of the parades up there in Canada.
parade.
Like, stood in front of it with Jesus stuff and walked illegally.
Oh,
Got
like the
arrested.
people.
Didn't
Oh,
know
he
you
did.
can't do that. You can't just join parades.
And hold up Jesus signs like a
Yeah.
crazy person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well,
You know?
I would love to do like formal debates, but I always feel this obligation to study as much philosophy as possible because it seems like the person who throws out the most philosophers from like 200, 300, 400, wherever many years ago is the one that wins. It seems to never really be about the integrity of the argument or the honesty of the thinking. It always seems to be about who can say Aquinas' name the most, who can bring up Dawkins, who can bring up, I guess, Socrates, Aristotle, Anselm. Hume is a popular one that people mention.
Right, but like I told people before, if you go and I have videos on my style and I have blogs on my style, and I don't bring up any of them.
I really don't see the point because this one
I don't
guy
bring up Dawkins. I don't bring up philosophers. I bring up thinking.
Right, because not even I don't even agree with a lot of their thinking, and obviously they don't either. Like the people who are bringing them up don't agree with them, because they're using these arguments, these philosophers, excuse me, concepts as an argument to try to support their ideas, but it's irrelevant because the philosopher themselves is not there to actually justify the thought. And also, who's to tell that if those people had lived longer and discovered what we know now, that they would have maintained those views?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. People are wrong. I mean, people used to not know a lot of stuff. We didn't know how snow happened. I mean,
Yeah,
how
they
rain
did.
happens. I mean,
No,
we didn't know a lot of stuff. I mean, that really is irrelevant. I mean,
it
it's like
is.
your new iPhone. So now, before 50 years ago, we didn't have iPhones. I mean, does that mean people 50 years ago were stupid or didn't know things?
No,
To
right,
me, epistemic ignorance is a constant thing, and that's why to me you need to go back, have good belief maintenance, check your
right.
beliefs. Are you,
Yes,
not just hold other people accountable, hold yourself accountable. Are your beliefs good? Are your beliefs accurate? Can you support your beliefs? How much can you support them? And then I think
right.
also another thing which I try to talk about a lot, it was my rationalism really. It's that we should be like, say if I say I believe something, a lot of times what I really mean is I have speculations in a sense.
Speculations. What do you can
What
you
I mean by
expound
that
on
are
that?
conjectures. This means that I don't have all the evidence, but I am going to make a thought about what it is. Just like it's like a puzzle. Say I build half the puzzle. Are you saying that it takes you until the last piece
That's
before
a good
you figure out
analogy.
what it is? Or do you
Yeah.
sometimes figure it out before the last piece? It's almost
Okay.
like Jeopardy, right? The words. How many of
Mm,
the things need to be filled in before you go, oh, I know what that says? So,
yeah. A Wheel of Fortune. Yeah.
right. But it's also to understand that that is what it is.
Okay.
In other words,
Right.
like some people get confused and think that a speculation, even a reason, because I explained that to me, there's like wild speculations. There's
Mm,
unjustified, or unsupported, where it just like out of nowhere, like say my socks are gone, must be aliens. You're like, what the hell?
or Gremlins who came and took
You
your
get
stuff.
or whatever. You get my point. But there's some things that just like I said, the Nile River's in my pocket, the entire river. You're like, oh bullshit.
Right.
So
Exactly.
So I'm saying, so there's some things that are just flat out unreasoned, that there's no way even the foolish could go, yeah, no, it's just, but sometimes people will still hold on to these ideas.
Mm.
Like the Graham Hancock show. He says in his blog that it's R1B that he thinks white people that went even to the Americas and taught everybody, right? But
Mm.
R1B went over 11,000 years ago. I don't know that it was a white
Is that a
person.
gene?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
a
a gene?
gene. Well, it's
Oh,
a genetics.
okay.
But I'm not sure even when it went over at that time, it was a white person, as far as he's trying to say. They went, that gene went to Europe, but they mated with people in Europe. And they
Mm.
also made it from the farmers coming from the Middle East. So, I mean,
Interesting.
yeah,
I need to look more into
At
that.
one time, all of Europe, in a sense, was brown people, or close to black, with black hair. A lot of times, some of them at a certain point had blue eyes, but they still had dark skin and dark hair.
How
This
did
is
that
true.
change, or based on your studies and understanding?
Well, in my opinion, seven
What
thousand
you've
years
learned?
ago, there's 8,000 to 7,000. The people from Siberia, the same one, the RB that goes over that I've said he talks about, R1A and R1B go in a sense to Europe and all that and take over and kill or assimilate 80 to
Gentrify.
90% of the population.
Okay.
80 or probably I think it's 90% or 95 in England and like 90 I think in Spain or something. I mean,
So it was
mass change
by conquest, basically.
massively. Well, 7,000 to 5,000 clans they've already done genetics that warring clans were going around, obviously, because it's one male for every 17 women. I talked about this
Whoa.
before.
Is that because
And
the frequency of war?
it's because they were either one of three things. A, they're cutting the guy's genitals off so they can't mate.
Why
Because
is
then
that?
eventually at a certain time, they did eunuchs and stuff for more,
Okay.
from, like slaves or whatever.
Mm,
So I don't know if they did that, but that's one thing. Somehow they didn't mate. Okay. Lots of men
okay.
did not mate of the other
Okay.
DNA, where the other DNA is doing is having, raping all kinds of women or whatever.
Sure.
I doubt they
Sure.
had, 17, everybody had 17 wives.
Right.
But, but my point is that they were taking the existing male population down to almost nothing.
Interesting. Well,
So
that's very wise.
they could have killed
Oh,
them. They could have made them slaves. They kept them from women. They could have cut their genitals off, and so they
that's
couldn't.
kind of what's happened with the black men in America by the heavy rates of incarceration. And it's actually helping to kind of reduce the amount of African American kids. Also, it detracts from generational wealth as well, because typically, well, like single black moms are the most impoverished. And that's a similar concept as to what's happening here in America with black men.
Right. So you asked, like, how did it become white?
Hmm.
That's how.
There we
It's
go. Oh,
basically
that makes sense.
not like evolution, more like a social evolution. They chose white people over dark people,
Hmm.
and they chose males not to mate, from the previous society that was darker to some extent, for
Yes.
sure. I mean, all of Europe was some form of dark. I mean, that's just a fact, especially if
That's
you go
so
to
I would have
10,000,
never
nine
pictured
thousand years
that.
ago. Huh?
I would have never pictured that. And it's very interesting. I know that this is kind of a touchy subject, about just the prominence of white Europeans and what they're willing to do to take resources. It's an interesting subject. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, I, I'm an anarchist and a socialist, so yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
definitely
just
have a
talk
lot
about
of
that.
opinions on that shit. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're not favorable to the fucking
The
white supremacy bullshit.
Yeah, I have to admit when I meet white people like you who are very progressive and open-minded and want equality for all despite their skin color, it kind of throws me off a bit because and not like in a bad way, but like it's kind of like I grew up in Tennessee where there's a lot of racism and people were really milking the fact, no pun intended, that they were white and had a lot of privilege. So I when I meet people who are not basically cashing in on that privilege, I have to ask, like,
But
why?
I wasn't raised in that. See, I was raised in Southern California in ghettos.
Mm,
So I've been
okay,
shot at,
that
I was
affects the
stabbed, I was
perspective.
jumped
Whoa,
by a gang at a school function at 13. I
shit,
mean,
stabbed.
yep,
Who stabbed you? Why are you stabbed?
fighting, gang fight, whatever, fighting in
See,
the
we
street.
had that's very interesting. We actually had opposite upbringings. I was raised in the suburbs with both parents in a big ass house and private school, and
I
that's
was a crack
interesting.
addict at
Oh shit.
15.
Crack at
Crack
15?
addict at 15. Yep,
How do you get access
running
to
drugs, running guns, knives. Yep,
running guns? How
yep.
did you get into that? It's so young. That's crazy.
I'm Los Angeles or
I'm
Orange
from the
County,
streets.
whatever. I mean,
I'm from the streets, bitch. I love that.
well, I tell people I'm an ex street kid or ex thug, whatever you want to call it. I hung out with and did crime.
God.
We got fuel by siphoning gas. We'd go down to the bingo where they're playing bingo, the old
Oh,
people, and we'd siphon it
yeah.
out. They always fill their tanks up, and they
Right.
never worry about shit. So we'd go over
Right.
there and just take their gas and freaking we drive all over the place, do shit, go to other cities and do crime and stuff. Oh yeah.
Wow. So what kind of led you talked about your childhood and kind of like there was a little like you mentioned abuse. Did
Extreme child abuse. I had my tailbone
extreme.
broken by my father hitting me with a 2x4 as a
Can you
form of
tell me more
spanking
about
because
that?
he broke the
As
paddle he was using, and he was still mad, and so he picked up a 2x4 and he broke my spine basically,
how
or broke
did you
my toe.
recover from that? Or how did
I
you know
haven't
that you
recovered. I can't do sit-ups and stuff even when I was younger,
Oh
and
my
sometimes
God.
sitting is bad. Oh yeah, it's not. It's a lifetime of, I was starved. I wasn't clothed right. I wasn't He took me to Fedco, which is like a Walmart kind of thing. He took me there and he goes, "Oh, go ahead and go look around." No, I knew that I couldn't buy anything, but I was so encloistered in this cult thing or whatever that his behavior, we didn't go do anything in the world. Didn't have TV, didn't listen to radio, except religious stuff or news. That's it. One show a week. We'd watch Mutual of Omaha, 1 hour a week.
Mutual of Omaha.
Bank? Wild Kingdom. Anyways.
Oh, Wild Kingdom. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard.
But anyway, so but it was a show about Africa or some different places. I think it mainly was Africa, but I can't remember. But anyways, so just going to a store around normal people, not his religious like cult stuff, was like almost like being Amish, or not exactly, but going and everything seemed weird. We didn't do it, and also he was a health nut, so he only ate healthy stuff, not sugar. So our lives
that's good at least. I mean,
but I mean, as a kid, you hate it,
Well, sure, of course.
So he goes, you can go walk around, and then he said, just meet back here in 15 minutes, and then we'll go. And so I met him back in 10 minutes, and he was gone. And I looked, what do you mean he was gone? He was gone.
And he left you at the store?
He left me. Then 3 hours later, he has his girlfriend call and ask, "Am I still there? If I wait, she'll come pick me up after she gets off work."
This is a religious person who's in a cult and is claiming to be, I'm assuming, a good person or a good Christian. But
objective morality, right?
Like objective morality, the Bible, right?
What an objective joke that is. Oh, but there's a bunch of stuff that he did. Yeah.
Did you have siblings?
He would only give me a half of a banana for school. That's it. He said, "I can survive with a half of a banana." Then you can. And so I got hungry and I was going to school. And so I said, "I'm just going to take a little bit of each person's lunch because I'm hungry." So I took aggressively, but I took this chips and took this, took it. The problem is though, I took it from a couple people. So a couple people went and told the school, and then it sounds like I'm like harassing all the kids. Right. When really I just was trying to make a meal. And then they said, "Oh, well, we'll just give you free school lunches." And all your father has to do is sign. And he said, "I'm not signing that."
Wait, why would he not sign it?
Because he didn't want to.
Could you forge his signature?
No, I was a kid. So I was like, I don't know, like, what was I? I think I was like 9 or 8 or something like that. Anyways,
what was his
so anyways, the school said, "We'll go ahead and just give you leftovers after everybody of the free lunch is eaten. If there's something left, we'll just give you that every day." Gosh. So every day I would have to wait while all the regular kids went, then all the poor kids went, then I would go after and see if there was any scraps.
How long did this go on?
It went on till I was like 13, 12.
And is that when you started getting into?
That's when I left my father and went to my mother's. And then I was raised in evangelical Pentecostal.
Oh, wow. Was that any better? At least was the treatment improved when you moved to your mom?
The treatment was definitely improved. I mean, it wasn't massive. He was massively abusive. Starving, all this to shoot, and not taking me to the doctor. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't.
Oh, goodness. So what led to you change? Like, was it the courts or the government that requested you to go to your mom's? How did that happen?
Oh, no, I told him that they said that at 13, I can choose to go to my mom's. And I told him, if you don't, when I was 12, whatever, and a half or something, I told him, if you don't let me go early, I guarantee you, I will never try to talk to you ever. I hated him so bad. In fact, when I was like 8 or 9, whatever, I changed my last name to my mom's boyfriend, because then it became my mom married him and stuff. But I didn't care. And the school said, "You can't use it." And I said, "I don't care. I'm a sociopath. Like, I don't care."
Right.
Said, you'll get kicked out of school. Oh, good.
Good. Wait, why would they kick you out of school for using a different name?
Well, because the last name, I wanted to use my real last name was Tolosi, and I said I want to use Sturt. And they said,
Okay.
you can't. And I said, watch me. So I actually
Mm.
graduated with Sturt, even though that is an alias. And then later I changed my name to Damien Marie Athope. Actually,
Okay.
first name was Damien, and then Joseph Sturt. But then when I met my wife, then I changed my last name.
Okay.
And
Did you change?
I made it at hope, as in a state of being I wish to be at, and then inspire in others to be hopeful.
Did she take your last name when you married?
Well, that was the point. I'm a radical, anarcho-feminist. So I said, you're not taking my name, and I'm not taking yours. I said, why don't we create a name that means something to us, and
Oh,
then
I
it will
like
be
that.
ours.
Okay, I like
And so
that.
we did that at Hope,
At
and,
Hope.
and I took her middle name, part to be part of her, but also I took it because of me being genderqueer. I felt like it's, and I say I'm male, whatever. That really I'm not. That's not the really genderqueer is a better explanation for what I am. Intersex genderqueer. So I guess
Intersex.
they or we or whatever. It's I feel both male and female. I don't feel really totally male, and I definitely don't feel female. But then sometimes I do feel kind of female, and sometimes I feel really male. So I mean, it's
Cool.
but I wonder, being intersex, I wonder if that has something to do with it. I do know that
Hmm.
it's not the majority of people that intersex that say that they have a gender thing, but there is definitely trans intersex people, and there's genderqueer intersex people or non-binary. So I would
So
say
what
really, I'm non-binary in a sense, or I'm dual binary. Maybe I don't know. How you going to explain it? Something like
so
that.
what led to the discovery of the intersex I'm sorry, what led to you discovering that you were intersex? You said you went to the doctor in your
Went to the
20s?
doctor, and because of the testosterone, and then he told me, he said,
Oh yeah.
"Yeah, your testosterone's low, really low." And
Okay.
this before I didn't have as thick of a beard or mustache, and I have delayed sexual development, which is an intersex feature
Okay.
that I didn't develop in a sense, all at once or like I should. It's just like some people who intersex can actually be born. This is why people don't understand. They can be born and seem, I think it's male, and then
Mm.
at puberty they actually turn into female.
That sounds like that movie Splice that it's an old movie with, I believe, Adrian Brody, when he worked with this girl in a science lab and they created um, I don't know what type of creature, but an animal, and it started off female and then changed to male later.
Well, I'm
Or
just
like a
saying that is
fish.
a reality. It's not super common. It's very rare,
That
but
is
it
interesting.
absolutely is a genetic thing that happens in humans. So when
Oh wow.
people say that, your gender can't change, or that's actually
Or your
scientifically not
sex.
true. It's not, what you should say is it's not common, but it does occur. So
Do you
teaching that there's only two and you're always the two and there's no variation, to me is scientifically wrong.
So, do you use the phrases or the phrase gender and the phrase sex interchangeably, or do they mean two different things to you?
Two different things totally. So my sex is intersex.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
my sex, is intersex accurately. Or you could say, I
Sure.
guess you could say even intersex male, because I do feel like my external body is like probably 80% or maybe 75. I don't know. Because I have female boobs, female nipples. I
Oh,
I do. So in a sense, so um
what is that
I've
called in males?
yeah, right. Whatever, but see, they try to. Oh, it's like one guy goes, "Oh, you're not intersex because that could be a non-intersex." I go, "I have that. Plus, I have a hidden penis." They go, "Well, that can also be by itself." I go, "Yeah, but it's not. It's with the breasts and the
Hmm.
nipples, and my whole genital can be pushed up inside. The
Oh,
penis balls can go right up inside and disappear, like if there's some cavity in there or whatever."
okay. I
It's
was wondering about the genitalia and how they could indicate that a person was intersex.
And I had, when I was born, I had like a little opening under the penis shaft, like vagina lips or something, or
Like
pseudo vagina
labia.
or something,
Pseudo
whatever, because it
vagina.
wasn't the full thing. But it was
Interesting.
from my testicles to almost the tip of my penis on the underside. It was like open. They had to sew it together,
Interesting. I've
which
never
made a
heard of that.
scar, which also like even hurt, jacking off as a kid. I'm like, why is this one spot like this? And they said, oh, well, yeah, my mom told me, oh, well, no, it's what happened is that they were going to do a circumcision and they had to do it by hand and someone slipped or something. And so they had to fix it.
Oh
That's
my
the
God.
bullshit she told me. That's absolutely wrong. You did intersex reconstructive surgery on me and then you told me it was nothing.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that may have had something to do with your father's mistreatment, like
Oh,
my brother
absolutely.
being
I
gay?
personally, absolutely. I think he thought I
Okay,
was not a man. He always told me you need to act like a man. You need to act like a man. Stop acting like that. You need to act like a man. And
sure.
so, I mean, at the time, I always thought, what the hell? I'm trying
Yeah.
to do, and then I also had girlfriends that I would try to date, heterosexually,
Mhm.
and I couldn't act male enough. They would
For
go, man,
them or just
it's like
generally?
dating a woman or something with you.
They would
And I
say that
said,
to
what am I
you?
supposed to do? Punch you? I mean, what do you mean by being a man? I didn't understand because I didn't understand because this is I don't know people trans how they feel, but how I feel, I've always felt the same. I've never felt totally like I fit with guys. I don't like sports.
Oh,
I'd rather
that's
go
right.
to
You did say that.
plays. I'd rather write poetry. You know what I'm saying? And
Oh,
just like all
okay.
this stuff. I mean, like I get why people think I'm gay or something, or because, but it's not. I totally am only into in a sense cis women.
Okay.
I tried sex with the intersex woman, couldn't even come.
It wasn't doing
I
it. It wasn't
couldn't keep
going.
my heart on. It just was not really
Not
for
working.
me. And I was like, okay. I
Well, that's
thought I would
smart.
try for, but I obviously it does matter to me. So
That's wild.
but I found not that many cis women really like me because I'm not like dating a normal guy to them. So it's
Interesting.
very uncomfortable because like all the boundaries are changed or dynamics are changed because I don't operate on that level. So
Hyper masculine.
I don't. She does the controller all the time with TV. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm just saying, there's like all this stuff. It's like I know me and her used to go to a lesbian bar, and
Oh,
we would split
that's
off
fun.
and play cards, right? And everybody thought I was her gay friend. She was a lesbian, and I was a
Mm.
gay friend. And I'm like, actually, that's my wife, and I would classify myself, I guess, as heterosexual, even though I would say I'm gynosexual to be more accurate.
Gynosexual.
That means that I'm attracted to, in a sense, cis women or women in general.
Am I gynosexual
I don't
then?
know what you are, but the reason why this is important is because it doesn't require the other gender.
Okay.
Any gender, lesbian, straight male, whatever, bisexual, pansexual, doesn't matter because you're not talking about what you are
Okay.
in relation to them. You're just saying, I like them. That
I
can be
do
done
like
by
them.
any kind of person in a sense.
Okay.
So
Well, I
that's all.
do like heterosexual cis. No, I'm sorry. I do like not hetero. Well, sometimes heterosexual, but I do like cis gender women. I don't know what that means though.
Well,
I'm just a lesbian.
I'm just saying, in a sense, a lesbian is a gynosexual. I would imagine.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
that
But
makes
but I
sense.
don't classify other people. I'm just saying. I just say heterosexual because it's just more people understand it
Sure.
a
Oh
lot better.
yeah,
It's
that
it's
makes
harder
sense.
to explain what I feel, but I also don't like my mom when I put my middle name Marie. She hated it. Oh,
Your mom did?
fucking hated it. She's like, Damien, seriously, how are people going to know you're a man? And I said, seriously,
Damien.
I don't care. Huh.
That's so funny. Well, I appreciate the uniqueness. I think that being, I think there's power in not fitting in. I know that's probably a contradictory idea to how we felt as kids, because you didn't want to be
Oh,
rejected, you didn't want to be bullied. But I think as you age, at least up to a point, being unique has value. Um, it
well,
sounds
I
cliche,
think
but
as you said
yeah.
before, progressive people would agree with that.
Progressive.
Non-progressive people, I don't know, because I've had a lot of people say, Damien, I don't want to hear your things. I'm not going to call you, gender queer. I don't know what that is, or intersex, or, so
Those
like
are
one person said to me, I already am trying to deal with learning about trans. I don't want to learn about something else. I'm like, yeah, because learning about other people and their own stuff is just not good enough for you. We all
no.
need to comfort you.
Yeah, that's really uncomfortable. And yeah, that's not okay, because this people treat these ideas as if they're just a social movement. But no, these are people's lives, and these are how um, they were born, especially with intersex. People
I
need to
felt this way
understand
all
that's
my
not
life.
a.
I didn't transition. I've
Yeah, right,
always felt
right,
like this. And in
right.
fact, I didn't even realize, because I just I feel normal. So just so people understand, I feel good. It's everyone else that goes, no, that's not right behavior, Damien. Gender policing me. No, no, no.
Gender
When
police. I never
yeah.
heard that.
Oh, well, because I've experienced it, because I don't act correct. Because I look, they think, oh man, I'm a manly man. Then I do
Mm,
stuff and they go, what the hell?
mm,
It's like my friends when I was in, I think sophomore maybe, or freshman, can't remember now. But I had built this bike myself. I bought the
oh, great.
frame. I painted it myself. I wanted it, put all the stuff on. And my friends were waiting. I said, oh, I can't wait to show you. So I bring it around and they laughed out loud.
What was wrong with the
And they
bike?
thought, is this a joke? Is that your sister's bike? And I said, it's my bike.
Oh, it was
And they
pink.
said, oh, but it's pink, bright neon pink and black. I go,
That's
isn't that
dope.
amazing?
Yeah.
I had pink spandex on with a black stripe on them, and they thought
Oh,
that I looked
well, there
gayer
you
than shit,
go.
But
Okay.
I didn't see myself as being gay. Is my point. I was just being
Okay.
myself. That's what I said.
Right.
Like you said, not a movement. Before someone told me the word genderqueer, which I learned at like 30 or something.
Right.
Before that, I didn't use that word. I would just go, I don't know, man. I'm just different.
I don't know, man. I'm different. I like that. That would be a great shirt. I don't know, man. I'm just different.
But that's what I would tell people, because I didn't have a word or a term, like I feel like people being, especially, people that are younger, bringing up and thinking about all this stuff and making new terms is good. I didn't have that. I didn't
Yes.
know, and I felt alone. So actually having the term, first time I read genderqueer, I cried, because it was the
Oh
first time I
no.
went, oh, fuck, someone else feels like me. I didn't feel alone, because I felt as an intersex person, there's not really a movement. It's not like the gay movement. If I go hang out
Mm-mm.
with gay people, they either hit on me or think that I'm just some, in a sense, almost like a fag hag, just hanging around them. Not that I really belong. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Oh.
that can feel extremely alone. And then when you tell people, in other words, there's no people, like if I said I'm intersex, no one goes, oh, that's great, man, I totally support you. They just go, oh.
What does that mean? Or to have people ask?
They rarely even do that.
Oh no.
So my point is, there's not a lot of support. When I tell people, I don't get benefit by telling people. I tell people for activism, because
Mm.
people need to know there's people out there. And I feel for other people not wanting to say, if you can pass,
Yeah.
not have to deal, why not do that? I mean, if I was in
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, I wouldn't be saying shit.
Right. And it's
I'd
going
be
back
like, I
to
don't
the
know what you're
black
talking about.
experience. Yeah,
Because if
exactly.
my life was on the line,
Oh yeah, you don't. I would be probably a very unhappy straight or heterosexual woman
right.
if I was in Saudi Arabia, or
I
dead
would
by
be a
now because I have
religious
a mouth.
person, because I wouldn't be an open atheist in Saudi Arabia where you can get killed for it, or at least put in
I
jail.
would have been probably stoned by my father way before we even got to this
True.
point. I'd have a mouth on me. But I
But
we it is what it was 9:05, and I wanted to kind of just start wrapping things up.
right on.
And thank you for coming on the
Yeah.
podcast. And I was hoping that this weekend, of course, is New Year's, and I'm putting on a party for my lesbian group in Atlanta. So I
Right
will
on.
not be able to be on the pod. I don't know if you were having a podcast this weekend
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm gonna keep doing it because I have my
Oh.
9th show, my 10th show, my 11th show, my 12th show, and then I want to do
Oh.
one show on. Well, I want to do one on Graham Hancock and this nonsense. Explain why. Going back to what I was saying about RB1. So
Yeah.
RB1, the thing he says, these white people. Okay, let's assume that doesn't matter. He says they were seafarers. Well, if he's talking about the ancient North Eurasians, which did come over and are connected to who eventually became RB1 in Europe, okay?
Mm.
The
Okay.
the DNA that went across, first off, if it went across at 12,000 years ago with the Paleo Indians, it
Mm.
didn't do it by a boat. It probably the people just walked. So
Okay.
his thing, and if he's saying, "Oh no, they went after the flood thing," well, the
Mm.
first pulse flood, there was several pulses, but the first, because eventually it became like 130 feet or something.
Oh wow.
But the
That's
first pulse, um, I think it was 26 feet and 160 years.
Oh, okay.
So the
Okay.
first one, that's his big flood, But
Well, I'm
in
very
general, the flood from the 11,000 years ago until the last ice thing flooded or whatever, it
sure.
was about maybe 4 inches every 100 years or something. I mean, it's just
Okay.
in general, it's yeah.
Well, I want to talk, of course, to you more about that, and I'm hoping to be on your podcast again, maybe the second week of January.
Yeah.
And I do read the things you send me. I find them very interesting, and I always enjoy learning from your expertise. So I want to thank you again for coming
Thank
on
you.
my podcast,
Right
and I
on.
would love to have you on again. And if you do not mind, please let people know where they can find you and find your blog and all of the information that you have available.
Right. So I have a lot of blogs. I mean, or I guess I have a blog with a lot of posts, I should say, or whatever.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
have probably 200 on like archaeology and religion and philosophy and stuff like that. Well, I probably have
Wow.
like 50 on philosophy, maybe 100, and then probably 200 on religion.
Wow. Well, that's a
Different
lot of
stuff
work.
with all kinds of resources and links and stuff. And I make speculations in there, but I also give you evidence. And I always feel that you should do the same as me. You should check out the stuff and believe what is reasonable and supported. So
Agreed. And they can find you on
they can
Twitter.
find it at DamienMarieAthope.com.
Awesome. Okay. And is your social media on there, your blog as well?
Yeah. Once you go to the blog or the website, actually is what it is, then
Okay.
you can see there's links to the blog and there's also links to my social media and stuff. And
Awesome. Okay. Well, I will, as this is going to be, well, of course, live and it's going to go up tonight, but I'm going to edit it. Well, not edit it, but add information to the post and everything on
right.
YouTube so people can find you. But I've said it 3 times. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And yes, absolutely. I always love hearing your thoughts. You have so much information, and I look at your work and I'm thinking, I have so long before I get. I have so much work to do, but that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I enjoy. So I will be having kind of segueing into this. My next podcast, episode 5, is going to be Theological Joe, Joseph Jackson. I have been on his podcast several times before. So I'll be talking to him about Christianity, theism. He is a Christian and a Bible believing Christian, of course. So we're going to be talking about that. So you can find that as well as this podcast and other episodes at Beat the Cult on YouTube. And you guys can also find me on Twitter at Beat the Cult as well. That's where I spend most of my time. But I want to thank everyone for watching. I am going to be working on marketing to get more people live, because I do have quite an engagement on Twitter, and
Yeah.
I would like to get more people watching the podcast. But there's growth, and this is just my 4th episode, so I will be improving. But thanks again, Damien, and thanks again to everyone who's watched. You can again find me on Twitter at Beat the Cult and YouTube at Beat the Cult as well. And I will see you guys next week with Theological Joe. Have a good night.
See ya.